All right, folks, welcome to Doozer's shop. It's Sunday. I've been busy all yesterday. I didn't break out the camera, but I've been working on the Rockford hydraulic open side planer, and it's mostly cleaning. I've been doing the main compound. There's a top compound and a side compound. I was working on the top, the main compound. Getting it clean, I've never gotten a chance to clean it yet. It was free, I mean, the machine was stored well. It just was, you know, probably an unheated storage for 25 or 30 years, but it was dry. Just dirty, kind of nasty. I didn't want to put it into use, you know, moving the slide up and down and everything until I got everything clean, right? Took it all apart, had it in the parts washing tank with mineral spirits, got it all rinsed out. Let me take a handheld and show you what I've been working on cleaning up. So here we go. All right. So there's a bunch of gears on the front side of this guy. You can see when you turn see the key in the threads there? That allows the power feed to come in from the machine. Got this all clean. That's the gib lock. Took that out. It was all bound up. It really needed it. Here's the main front piece where the clapper box goes. Got this nice and clean. It's a machine's seller's tag, dealer's tag. That's in good shape. So this is all super dirty. Here, this is the base for the clapper box, and this is the actual swinging part of the clapper box. Chase these threads down, 3/4 coarse thread. You'll notice this was probably cracked maybe before I was born, who knows. But that's cracked. It doesn't seem to affect anything. It's fine over here. I could V it out and braze it, but I don't think I'm gonna mess with it, you know. So anyhow, let me show you guys something. So this is the crank handle goes here, right? The handle goes here, and the nut for the handle goes there. And this thread is for the dial, and looks like a collar for the dial. So this is actually where the collar for the dial threads out, and the dial's kind of slips over it. I didn't realize this was threaded. I have the manual, and finally I checked the manual, and it showed that this was threaded. It had a set screw in the collar or the hub or whatever you want to call it, and on the side of the machine it has dials with hubs, and they got a set screw, but they just slip on. They're not threaded. So I was trying to get this off. I had the collar or the hub, you know, I took the set screw out, of course, and I thought this was just a straight shaft. I had this thing a dull red with the cutting torch, with the oxygen acetylene torch, probably 6 times, trying to heat it up, and then, you know, hammer tap it around with a copper hammer, hammer tap it around with a copper hammer, lead hammer, trying to break it loose. And I wasn't going full blown angry on it at all. I was very cautious, and it just wasn't coming loose. And I was trying to load it. I was trying to put a little block of aluminum between the fixed part of the compound and, you know, just to put a block in there around the bearing area to try and get some force and tap it, wouldn't go. And thank goodness I had the manual, because like I said, it had it's shown in the drawing, the mechanical drawing, that was threaded. So once I knew it was threaded, it really came off fairly easily. So that's kind of nice. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the Gibberooski. So this is the dial. It's all black from heating it up. And that's the dude, right? Threaded. Hey, look at that, folks. So this is all I could see. This is all I could see. And it had a set screw to retain it. But I was heating this piece up. Man, I heated it 6 times to a dull red. And now I understand that it's threaded. So it's a good thing I didn't do anything super forceful, and it's a good thing I had the manual. So I got some of the nuts and hardware soaking in lacquer thinner there. I'm gonna wire brush the gib, and all the components are kind of laid out any which where I can put them. That is the clapper lifter. So this screws in and it holds on the angle part of the clapper. So it's got the piston, and there's 1/8 inch pipe thread in the side so you got to unscrew this. It doesn't look like you can unscrew it, but I put a pipe wrench on it and I unscrewed it once I realized it had some threads on it. Now this dude, that's the gib lock for that hole I showed you, and it's bent. I can show you a background that's not gonna, boom. It's bent a bit. So extracting it was a bit tough. And it hooks on the gib strip and pulls it into locking. So I had to stack washers, more and more washers, and I pulled it out. So I'm gonna I could grind this round again. Maybe I'll do that. Or bend it back. Oh, I'll just press it. It opened up. So maybe I should try pressing it on the top, and then it'll take the bend out. I don't know. I think what I want to do, stay there. And then ball thrust bearings and just hardware, and there's the plumbing piece. And man, I had tools out like you wouldn't believe. Anyhow, let me walk you over. I need more bench space. I still got the boring head in the mighty SIP. It looks good, doesn't it? Looks good. Looks proper. Anyhow, I gotta get this engine off my table. Jeez Louise. All right, this is what I've been battling, right? This whole shooting match here. I still got to scrape some of the grease off of this, and these are a bear to get holding in the position when you put this back on, so I'll have to figure out how to do that. Maybe I'll solicit the help of somebody. Anyhow, the power feed gear comes out of there. You might be able to see, there's that, which is the shaft, which is this crank, right? So this crank, and you can see that shaft, let me steady the camera, that moves and spins the gear. So that's cool. That's how that works, right? So what I was talking about is this. These collars, this one and this one, there's a set screw. These are not threaded. They just come off. You loosen it and the whole thing slips off. So that's why I thought the top was a similar same way. So I've been dancing on the ceiling here, trying to get all my stuff off and laying parts everywhere. That Croyle stuff, Aero Croyle, is really awesome. And so you've been up here before seeing the mount for the lamp. But it's kind of neat. There's a gib for the top side of the boxway and a gib for the back side of the boxway. And that's kind of how boxways are. It's nice to have adjustable gibs. Here's a cross rail lock, apparently. That's a grease fitting, and I'm wondering, so it goes down to there, and it greases the shaft that does the power feed rotation. I'm thinking that would be better off as an oil cup. And I know this handle kind of goes over the top of it. I might convert it to, blow it out. So now that I got it all open, use the air compressor, blow all the grease out, use a brass street L and elbow it over and then up or something to get a clearance. These were grease. That was grease, a grease fitting. And it just laid grease on the front of this, the top part of the dovetail. Now the dovetail surface is of course the underneath angled part and then the back face. So this is kind of clearance. Why do you want grease in there? Really, you don't need oil in there, but I'm not quite sure why. It should be clearance. So I don't know. The grease would be a mess. Maybe hard to see. Can you see? There's the gib for the up and the vertical ways here, and I colored it with white paint. It's a flip-top Gitz oiler, so the gibs sometimes have oil provisions. Kind of neat. Anyhow, so this is the bird's eye view of Doozer shop. Anyhow, let me get back to cleaning, and yeah, I'll show you a bit more a bit later, but for now, gotta go and do some more work. This is Doozer shop. Alright guys, something real quick. This is that hub that holds the dial on the Rockford planer, and there was a ball detent stuck down in there. There's a ball with a spring on it, and after heating this thing red a couple times, the spring has lost its tension. The ball had become kind of stuck in there. You could pick at it and it would move just a small amount, but the ball was stuck in there. So what I did is I TIG welded, you know, to get that out of there. Man, if this thing's gonna focus, let me try to. All right. So what I did is I stacked some TIG tack welds, put some tacks on there, stacked them up. And I do this just on broken off bolts and studs too. So this allows me to grab the ball. I couldn't grab it, so let me reach in there. Hopefully this is cool. See? Come on, dude. Focus. Right. So there it is. There's the ball. There's a little stack of TIG. Here, let me put that on aluminum there. And that's it, right? So, let me get you, come on, where the heck is it? All right, here we go. That's the stack of, you know, TIG tacks on that ball. Oops. So that's how we do it. Just grabbing them with a, enough to grab with the needle nose pliers or whatever. So that's a good, there's still a spring down there, I'm assuming. Possibly so. That thing's ready to go. Dig the spring out, put a new spring in, put a new ball in. That's an oil hole. It's pretty cool. There's a 1/4-20 set screw that locks this thing. You can kind of see in there, hopefully, a piece of brass with the threads formed. So that bears on the threads, not just the screw to gnarl everything up, which would be terrible. But that's cool. This is actually an oil port. If you look, it goes through. You can see the white wall in the background, and that's delivers. Come on, Bubba. Well, if I go, yeah, you can kind of see it. There you go. That delivers oil down at the base of the threads to lubricate the bushing on top. I might put a pipe cleaner in there if I got one small enough, or a piece of cotton to allow oil but not schmutz to get in there. Rockford's great about putting part numbers on all their parts. As an engineer, I put on all my part drawings for the machine shop to mark them in some way, shape, or fashion. They got laser etching now, which is nice, which is kind of cool. So that's a 3/4 fine national fine thread in there. I chased that with a tap because it was a little schmooshed up at the top. But anyhow, we're ready to go. I'm going to get my spring out of there and find a new ball and a new spring. So just thought I'd show you that little TIG getter out situation. All right, Doozer Shop. Hey, good evening, Doozer Shop. So it seems like I've been getting into a lot of re-engineering machines in the last couple years as far as the lubrication system goes. And I found some things on this planer, the Rockford hydraulic open side planer, as I was going through it. And let me just get right into it. Let me take you handheld and show you what I'm talking about. All right, I believe I showed you I had these parts cleaned up in the parts washer and laid out, getting it ready for reassembly. So the screw is keyed, and I mean, I'll flip it over and show you. You can see there's a bevel gear there, a steel bevel gear, so it can power feed. You can see that this is, let me kind of go down more. That spigot, I'll call it, supports everything when the bolts are loose so you can swivel the compound. And there's an oil hole or a grease hole. And you can see where that would lubricate the bushing. So no matter where you turn it, there's a corresponding hole on the machine, and because it's in a trough, it'll always connect. Now, all right, so that ruler is 1 inch, of course, and that is dead nuts bisecting that hole, right? So that hole is 1 inch center from the surface. All right, so we love that. We dig that. So, kind of show you. Let me get in position here. So here is where it goes, and I still got to clean some grease off. And, all right, steady camera. There's the hole. You can see my tip of my finger. There's the hole, right? Right there. So if you put that across and you measure in there with another ruler, that's at 1.25 inches to the center. If you do that, so it's at 1.25 inches. So it misses. That sucker that hole is basically cut off. It doesn't line up with the round undercuts on the spigot. It doesn't line up with the hole. So where that gets, all right, here, there's a grease fitting. So there's oil for the bottom ways, right? That's a Gitz cup, and that grease fitting comes into there. All right, so that's, let me put the lamp flashlight back up there. So that's that's that. So I got a plan. Yeah, geez, it's hard to see. Can you see that? I got a piece of plexiglass in there, and I'll explain that in a second. You can see the bevel gear, and see you turn it. All right, that's the bevel gear. So I put a piece of plexi. So I got a C. Let me back up. I got this C clamp on there,
and there's a piece of plexiglass in there, right? So I'm covering up the hole. So what I'm going to do is get in there with probably a ball burr on a Dremel tool and grind that forward 1/4 inch. So the lubrication will come forward. Okay. Now what was going on, and then it'll line up with the round groove, and the lubrication path will not be blocked any longer. I'm just going to grind it out. So that's why I'm not explaining this very well. I found this piece of plexiglass. I was looking for a piece of aluminum or whatever. I just happened to find a piece of plexiglass that slipped in there. So it's to keep the chips from the grinding with the burr from getting all everywhere. So so these are the bolts for the, hold the compound on. I'm gonna rig up a vacuum cleaner. Maybe I use some bungee cord onto these bolts, and have the vacuum cleaner running. I'll just get in there and grind that slot. And like I said, that piece of plexiglass, and I had a piece of aluminum, and it was too big, and I didn't want to cut it. So this plexiglass is probably decent. So that's my plan. So, like I said, one of the problems was the grease leaked out onto those gears, and there's a ton of grease. Man, let me try to behind there, right? Behind the whole shoot and shaboodle, there is grease like you wouldn't believe. And inside the teeth was chips of metal, aluminum, steel. So some of these are a little bit dirked up, right? Right there, you can kind of see. I mean, they're not bad. I could probably, that one's got a raised hump. I can probably knock that down with a hammer. But because grease got on these gears, it attracted the chips. Little ribbon type chips, and it just packed chips in there. Some of them I had to get a little scratch awl and just, they're embedded so tight I had to pick them out. So anyhow, that's that. So let me lift this up for you guys, because yeah, that's stable. So that's what it looks like. So it takes this key, there's the keyway, and there's the nut, and then there's the other bevel gear. There's 2 bevel gears in there, and that's how that works. So there's the nut, and then there's the bevel gear and the bevel gear. So that's how that works. But like I said, the problem was the grease channel wasn't lined up. So that's going to be fairly easy. I'll just get a 1/4 inch ball burr on the Dremel and get in there and hook the vacuum up. And now I'm not far away from taking this whole thing out, right? If I take off that Allen screw, and that Allen screw, that's the half nut and the support, half nut and support for this feed rod. So in theory, if I take that screw, and that screw off, I can slide this right off the end. I might have to loosen the gibs and da-da-da-da, but I could take this off the end. But I've cleaned this thing so thoroughly with the intention of not taking it off that I don't think I'm going to take it off. I think this is going to be fine. To take it off to grind that and keep the chips from using the burr to a minimum. But anyhow, get up. So that's the plan. And like I said, that gets cup. So that's for the bottom way. That is the feed. So I'm going to replace that. Man, camera work here is a lot to be desired. All right. had a grease. That's like one of the only grease fittings. I want to replace that with another Gitz cup. So instead of feeding this grease, I'm going to feed it oil. And I'm going to use that real heavy oil. I'm going to use like STP, scientifically treated petroleum, or that Lucas motor honey. I forget what the Lucas thing is, but super thick. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a standpipe. I'm going to put an elbow, and I'm going to put like a 2-inch riser, and then put the Gitz cup, just to get the Gitz cup, you know, over the top level of that. So I'm going to fill that whole round area up with that thick oil. So this 1/8-inch pipe thread, I'll get a brass street elbow, like a 2-inch or 2.5-inch nipple for a riser, and then I'll put the Gitz cup right there. Now, here's the gib lock, and here's another grease fitting. Well, what does this do? This just puts grease on top of the gib strip. So you can kind of see, there's the gib strip and the adjustment screw, and it's tapered, of course. And as far as I can tell, that just puts grease on top of the gib. Now, I don't think that's good. I know it's just to keep the gib from seizing up, but there's nothing to oil the top rail slideway other than just put oil on it. Just put an oil can and dribble it on. I think I already had this Zerk off, and I stuck a wire down in there, and it was full of nice amber grease. If I blow that out with compressed air, if I got a rubber tip blow nozzle, or I just adapt something, I can blow that out, clear all the grease out, wipe it off with lacquer thinner that oozes out. I mean, I know it supplies the top of the gib. Well, there could be a hole and a slot in the gib, I don't know. But I think it's just really a bad thing that the manufacturer put that there. It doesn't even call that out in the manual. It's ironic. So these two Gitz cups, these were grease fittings, and in the manual it says these should be oil cups, but they were grease fittings. Now, different years they did different revisions and different stuff. So I changed those to Gitz cups. Basically, that's the only grease fitting called out on the machine other than the motor. And I'm going to change that to an oil cup, and I've been very fond on the sip over there of using that real thick STP, Motor Honey, Lucas, whatever it is. So that's the plan. Yeah. And this thing's got little Gitz oilers everywhere. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're everywhere. So I had this gearbox apart up in New York to try and lower the head. There's grease caked on the gears. And I took it apart and cleaned the grease, and that was the problem. So I could roll the gears over. So this is forward and reverse. Where is it? There's a lever on the bottom for the lead screw, and this lever on the top is for the feed. But I don't know, I don't want to seem to engage, or I can spin the shaft and I still won't get it. So I'm going to pull all this off eventually and just see what's going on in there. I'm sure I just got a washer backwards or something. But anyhow, I like the Gitz cups. I don't mind them. And yes, I believe the manufacturer was incorrect, or they just didn't realize that the grease would attract so many chips. So anyhow, that's the plan. I'm going to grind that out and try to do that. Might as well show you. I don't know if I showed this on camera or not. If not, it's a review. So the power feed, it takes, I got my rag stuffed in there. This is the oil supply for the power feed, and it's got this nice crane valve. And that's the ratchet, and there's a stroke adjustment, da-da-da-da. And the oil drain is on the side, right? So supply is 1/2-inch pipe, and return is 1/8-inch pipe, and that returns back to the reservoir. Now, you guys remember in the the video on the sprag clutch that this was, so if that's the level of the drain, right? There's anything. Yeah, that's the drain. That's always full up to at least there. Now the oil can never drain out. So what happened was the moisture in the oil, the water collected in here, right? So this is why that sprag rusted and it got so bad. So what I've done, and I'm gonna stick my leg again. I've got a, so the bottom's a soft plug or a freeze plug, or more properly a Welch plug. And I've soldered, no, I think I TIG welded, I don't remember, an 1/8 inch bung on there, 1/8 inch pipe head bung, and I got an 1/8 inch elbow to 5/32 push line. And basically, the 5/32 line is so small that the oil, it'll go through it, but very slowly, right? So it kind of, sorry with the lighting. So basically it goes down, and that's where the sight glass was, right? And I got a new sight glass coming, but it drains down there. So when the machine's running, you know, for the most part, the oil will fill up and drain out the factory 1/8 inch pipe location on the left there. And eventually, overnight or something, you can see there's some oil in the line, it'll drain that out. So that's kind of a tasteful modification for that. So anyhow, yeah, that's kind of it. I'll turn you around here. All right. So that's that. I'm going to get to work, and the next thing probably I'll do is grind that out and set the vacuum up. But I wanted to show you that hole drifted in the when they drilled that grease hole. I'm sure that's what happened, is that it drifted, and that's why it was off, you know. So I'm going to grind that out, connect to, so the lubrication enters that round circular recess on the bung, I guess you'd call it, the spigot, and we should be good. But you can't trust the lubrication system on an old machine, because they gum up, they gunk up, the bezier fittings get clogged up with the wax and the oil. But you can't even trust, some of the time, that it was engineered properly. There's two reasons here. What I'm just showing you with the alignment of that hole, and down below where it harbors that oil and it will never completely drain. I guess if you change the oil in regular intervals, I don't know. That's a collection spot for moisture. It just is. So, and then you've seen the extensive oiling system mods I've done on the Colchester 17-inch lathe. And you know, I changed all the Bezier restrictor fittings on the Giddings and Lewis horizontal boring mill right next to me here. So if you're into old machines, pay super close attention to the lubrication system, because man, I'm a firm believer, if the ways get lubricated and the screws and the nuts get lubricated, they'll last forever. You know, you keep grit and grind, don't grind on your machines and, you know, sand on them and all that, but lubrication is so important. And don't trust anything. Verify yourself that the lubrication system is clean and working, and all the oil is getting to the places where the oil is needed. And you should be able to figure this out. I mean, if it moves, oil it. If it's not getting oil, it's going to seize up or score. So, all right, enough talking. Doozer shop. All right, let's zoom in. We got her ground out. See if we can get you a good shot here. All right. See, we got that elongated out to the side there. All right, now that is 1 inch from the surface. Puts that solidly into that area there. And I got all the chips sucked out of there. It's nice and clean. And that's going to allow the lubrication to get to that area on the spigot. So a lot of prep and cleaning, and I had the vacuum cleaner hose in there sucking out the chips, and then I sprayed some carburetor cleaner in there. So that worked out quite well. And so that's it. And I'm going to take my plexiglass out of there and put my lubrication fittings in there, blow the grease out, change to a Gitz oiler, and you know, away we go. Hope you enjoyed seeing that little modification.